We are back.
We are back. Tiffany, what would you say is the most interesting thing that's happened to you so far in 2026?
Um, Good question. I'm not really sure. Um, Most interesting thing. Um, I don't know if I've had anything interesting. Like, it's been a quiet, knock on wood, 2026 so far. Like nothing has been crazy, which I think is a good thing.
That could be positive. Well, for today, then, we are going to talk a little bit more about different types of trauma. But today, I want to just give our trigger warning that we will be getting into process addiction. So, for those of you who may not be familiar, we'll be talking about gambling today, shopping, video games, really a lot of different things. So we just want to give a heads up. So that doesn't mean if you're dealing with something like this, you can't listen to this. Like, feel free. It's just we do want you not to be like caught off guard. We will be going through a few different situations that I'm sure will be triggering or activating for people. So we just want to give this disclaimer. If you're not in a place for that, absolutely no problem. Join us next time. But just want that disclaimer before we get going.
Yes. Trigger warning. So that being said, um, Eric, since your expertise is addictions, do you want to give the definition, or I can give like the definition that I accumulated?
Well, I mean, I have no preference. Coin flip.
Okay. So what I found and the way I defined process addictions is they're also known as behavioral addictions. They involve compulsive engagement in rewarding behaviors despite negative outcomes, oftentimes with a zero ingesting of a substance. Like you're not ingesting a substance when you're engaging in a process addiction.
I think it's a really good definition. Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, there's a lot of different terms for it. I like the term process addiction, just seems to get us, but I also get behavioral. So, absolutely a compulsive behavior with an inability to stop, often resulting in harm, physical, mental, financial, or relational well being. The brain reward systems, there's triggers, they release chemicals, produce pleasure, similar to the effects of drugs. Drugs is my lane, the brain is Tiffany's lane. But you will notice discussion about things that relate to tolerance and withdrawal. So people may be needing to engage in more of the behavior, like at higher levels or more frequently to achieve the same satisfaction, and then having that irritability or anxiety when they're unable to do so. So these things that could be into this: exercise, food and eating, work, technology, gaming, sex, love, intimacy, shopping, spending, and gambling.
hmm I also had gaming, pornography, social media, work, exercise, food, and relationships.
Yeah. So I mean, we could get we could go a lot of directions with this, but just to think about 100 years ago, some of the things we have access to now, with like we've just talked about internet, porn, shopping, food. I mean, Tiffany and I, as we're recording this, we're not, but we could be gambling, we could be drinking, we could be door dashing food to ourselves, we could be shopping, we could be doing all of it, which is huge surge of things. And I don't even need to get up. I don't even need to do anything other than maybe scroll my thumb. But to be honest, we could do this with just our voice. Like we could be getting our smart AI Alexa or Siri. I'm trying not to trigger everybody's phone if like by saying that, but saying those things, we could order something just for it. So the speed is one of the things I just like to point out. The speed you could develop an issue with this, the speed that you could do something with this, it's very quickly. Um, Obviously, you got to eat and working, exercise a little different, but even work, if we go into that for just a second, you could be listening to this, having Microsoft Teams going while you're in another meeting, while you're going to another thing. Like there is so much that can happen that there's just a speed, I think, of our society, Western culture in America that tends to push some individuals into this direction. And some folks don't even realize that that may be what they're experiencing. So, Tiffany, I don't want to take all the fun things to talk about or the juicy pieces. So, what do you have to maybe throw in here?
So I have kind of like the core button system to focus on is that process addictions aren't about willpower. It's about the reward circuit. Um and a lot of big words, but essentially what's happening is that there is a cue that appears, whether it's a notification, stress, boredom, loneliness. Dopamine then spikes in anticipation. Then that behavior happens, whatever that process addiction is. You get temporary relief or reward, and the brain ends up encoding that as, oh, this solved the cue that appeared, so I'm going to keep doing this. Over time, it becomes a more powerful, the cue becomes more powerful than the reward. You end up developing tolerance, and ultimately, your prefrontal cortex weakens in its inhibitory control to keep you from engaging in the cycle. Um, and oftentimes, the process addiction isn't so much about liking something, it's about learning, it's more of your brain wanting to, like, learn how to do something well.
Wow. Well said, Tiffany. I think a question people could be having is like, who suffers from these? It can be absolutely anyone. I am really passionate about those struggling with problem gambling. So one thing I just want to say that I think needs to be said, it's not really a trigger warning, is that if you gamble at all, shop at all, exercise at all, work at all, that's not what we're talking about. So just to be very clear, like we're talking about like a compulsive level, like a high level where it is like problematic. So we are not trying to say if you've ever been to a casino, if you've ever shopped online, you've ever looked at porn, that you have one of these. That is not what we are saying. So just to be very clear, because I think sometimes when we talk about stuff like this, people are like, oh my God, I don't know if you remember this, Tiffany, reading the DSM for the first time. It's like, oh my God, I have all these. Now, like that's just like kind of very common. We hear about something, we're like, oh my gosh, am I in this? So one thing I want to throw out though is that from the National Council on Problem Gambling, there is an estimated 4 to 6 million people in the United States that struggle with gambling. So if we're just talking just about gambling for just a moment, um, you know, we're getting into some things, right? Like depending on like the modality. So if someone is like having problem gambling with like slot machines, like there's a lot of things that feed that. We could talk about all the distortions with like the near miss, where it's, oh, I was so close. Let me try again. Oh, I had four of the five. Oh no, the lights, the sounds, there's so much, right, that could try to go. But something that is happening is like the speed of things is very quickly. So even the casinos, whether it's in person, online, like they look at the speed it takes to go through. The faster that you can play, the faster they can make money. So that's true for betting, gambling. Yeah, go ahead, Tiffany.
I just think that's crazy, the fact that they're evaluating things on that level, like how fast can we make it go so that like it's almost making it so fast that you're not even aware that like something is happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever been to a casino, I have,
I have not.
professionally and just personally. Um, I mean, the speed of the decks. I mean, that one of the things, if you're playing a table game with like cards, for example, they're seeing how long it's taking the dealer just to shuffle a deck and hand things out. That in itself. Um, so why am I talking about this? Because you could see the tolerance for people, the speed at which someone could develop a problem. It can go very, very quickly, especially when we're talking about phones. A lot of the things we're talking about with this can be done through the phone. So, for example, you could DoorDash so many things to yourself. You could add so many things for shopping. You could look up so many different things for pornography, spend as much time video game. I mean, so there's so much of this that you can do without really having to exert much effort at all. It's right there.
Hmm.
Barriers. You don't have
Yeah.
to. go anywhere in person to gamble anymore.
That reminds me, have you seen those, I'm sure they're on TikTok, Facebook, everywhere, but those, like, little, like, solitaire cash or whatever that cash is where they're like, "Play now and you get instant cash." Um,
Oh no, I have not seen that.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of targeted ads about trying to, like, pull you in regarding that. But a comparison for those of you who may or may not have ever been to a casino and you potentially play a lot of video games or even TikTok scrolling. In video games, oftentimes it's the loot boxes where it's like, hey, just 200 coins, you can open this loot box and potentially get a really cool skin. And before you know it, you're like spending money on loot boxes trying to get really cool exclusive skins that maybe you can't buy outside of that. And that can start that process addiction as well. Um, I'm gonna let Eric talk a little bit more about TikTok scrolling process addiction since I feel like you have a little bit more expertise than I do on TikTok.
Are we talking personal or professional?
A little bit of
Yeah,
both.
yeah, that's a little bit. I was like, wow, Tiffany's calling me out, and we are live. Yeah, I mean, social media is definitely something like, it can get in. I mean, as we're talking about, there's gaming, there's videos. I mean, we talk a lot about this, the algorithms and things that we're engaging with. But, to this point, though, a lot of these process addictions are going to be present in like advertisements. So whether that is pornography, whether that's gambling, whether it's shopping, I mean, there are so many things to pull you in. So yeah, I mean, TikTok shop. Um, there's even different types of gambling. I want to explain what it is because I think the name may not make sense to people, but like where you're watching someone on live and you're bidding or even placing bets on what they're going to open. So it could be like, okay, mystery package from Lululemon, I bet it's tights. And you can stake these tokens or coins or a very other common scenario is like people opening player packs. So whether it's like football cards, baseball cards, and betting on the pack or bidding live as people are opening. Uh, so there's just so many things that can be gambling that don't have to be officially labeled. So, whether that's church bingo to lotto tickets to loot crates. I mean, we're talking about video games, so maybe we can connect these for a second, Tiffany, about like skin betting. Have you heard of this?
Okay,
Okay.
so is this the one where like well, funny enough happened to my partner where like I don't know if it's the same or maybe just related in the field. Like his account was hacked. He could never recover it because he had a skin that was like super high value, and this person like got it and stole it and like sold it and everything of this nature. And I'm like, this is insane that like digital things are worth so much that people are willing to hack other people's accounts.
So it's that is the thing. So people can bet these rare skins that do have a value. And so just for those listening, because like this is newer to me. So I'm gonna just acknowledge this is a kind of on the growth edge for me understanding. But like we're talking about thousands of dollars. We're not talking 10, 20, maybe 100. Like
It's a
we're
lot.
talking $2,500 for some of these rare items and skins. So skin betting is in the game, you getting these rare items and betting them on outcomes. So that could be the Super Bowl. It could be, I think this live streamer will do this. And then, like, with no mistake, like you bet it, you lose it. So there's so much stuff like that now that it's like, whoa, like, whoa, like, what do we do? So I just think there's so many things that can get to our brain. And so we just have to be very mindful of like what we're consuming. Um, there is this idea that gambling is fun, light, painless. Uh, I mean, really, any of these things like shopping, whether it's a shopping spree, eating, like, but they all come with like a cost. So we just have to kind of understand that, like, where are we getting the information from? So, um, like for example, something I have observed for people who go in person, this is more of an in-person gambling thing. They're very lonely and they're using the time spent at the casino to find meaning, to find connection. There's staff that know them. They have a purpose. They have things to do. Um, it's just So it's not judging, it's just understanding the risk of folks who are looking for different outlets or things. So, I mean, even just the way this is labeled. So there is something called Kalashi, and that is like a
Oh wait,
speculative
Velocity?
Kalashi. Have you heard of this?
I have not heard of this. Please educate me.
So it is a so Kalshi is an app. I need to say it right before I go. So Kalshi is an app that talks about trading. So they call it trades. So I'm not gonna use that word though, because
Or
it's
is
really
this
not.
like Bitcoin like world, or is this something totally different?
No, this is like betting. So this is where I'm frustrated. So let me just check my. So officially, it is a speculative market investment. So you're buying stocks like options of, but the options are on, do the Seahawks win the Super Bowl?
So
So
these are speculations.
yeah, it's speculative prediction market, and it's regulated by the FTC.
Wait, you're kidding me.
No, it's not labeled gambling, even though it is on sports matchups, Oscar wins, hurricane strength. It's like, um,
Wow.
so, and this is important why it's not gambling or betting, is athletes can have endorsements with these organizations, even though people are putting it. It's so twisted, Tiffany. We don't even have enough time to like get
This
into
is
it, but I
like
like got to get the name right. Kalshi.
this is like I'm gonna throw some people under the bus and this might trigger some people, but this is like people calling themselves wellness coaches and trying to be therapists. And they're like, well, I can do it. And I'm like, but it's not
So
ethical.
no, but I want to give an example of how the advertisement for this work, and I just find it kind of interesting that, like, for folks who are, again, like, I want to be specific, so I'm not trying to trigger anyone, but I want to give an example of what a call sheet commercial is. So on my TikTok, I'm scrolling now. I have to acknowledge though, my algorithm's very skewed, guys, because I do watch these ads and I do click up stuff when I go to the problem gambling conference and I'm going to things and I look up the stuff. So like my algorithm's going to send me more of these. So like I don't want to say, oh, this is so common, I'll be pricing it. But these call sheet ads are legitimately saying it's a chance to earn a side income. And like one of the videos that I see a lot is this young woman and she says, you know, my call sheet, I predicted the Oscars right. And my call sheet just became my coffee money for the month, something like that.
So
So
is it
it's
like
labeled,
100, 200? Like, I don't know what. I don't drink coffee, so I'm like, what's an appropriate amount of coffee money are we talking about?
well, to your point, Tiffany, I think they picked that because one can put that money where they would like. So I guess it depends how often someone's going. But
Okay.
this is the thing. You can win big, lose big. Just depends on what you're going to do. But the thing that's kind of interesting is that people could think they're doing that and it's an investment. And technically the government would say, you're investing. That's investment. Buying a contract on something that you think. Like the
I mean,
Oscars.
I guess I can see how it's an investment. Like, you're sinking money into something, but like,
Well, then let's go with that. If it's just sinking money into something, what if I go to the casino tonight and spend? We record this on a Friday, so if I go to the casino tonight and drop $3,000, did I invest in myself for my entertainment, or did I just spend $3,000?
um, see, this is why the external process addiction. As someone who's outside, I could, I could weigh the argument in terms of like, if you enjoy it, yeah, sure, we could argue that it's a $3,000 investment and you're like fun. I, but
Yeah.
also
So
like,
maybe the investment in self, like I'm paying for self-help classes. But if we're talking like a financial investment, I don't know if that's what this is. And so there's a push of like this should be regulated like gambling. And then they have restrictions on how they can advertise and what they can say and not say. But it's a huge problem. And so one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is like I did just go to the Ohio Problem Gambling Conference. And here's some of the things I learned at this conference that relates to this. Even though the legal age to gamble is very high, higher than
wait,
it
what is it?
would. What do you think it is, Tiffany?
I would assume it was like 18, the same like,
It's 21, just like alcohol
okay.
in Ohio.
Okay, see,
Maybe somewhere
clearly I'm
different.
giving minors even more fun than they deserve.
Well, But it's not stop. So with these sports betting apps or other apps, if it's on a phone, yeah, they can do verify face, but there's ways around that if you have the pass. So underage sports gambling is happening right now. It's a known problem, even though there's all these barriers and verification and scan an ID. So teenagers are already doing this, just like there's teenagers vaping, teenagers. So it's not like new, but it's just to say there are so many people that can get wrapped up in this. And so I think one of the things when we talk about this, like we don't even have like a set name for it, right? So we can call it behavioral addiction, we can call it process addiction. Like there's not a set name, and not everyone's aware of them, you know? Especially if you talk about like work culture. Like there could even be a value in like, wow, look at like how dedicated this person is. Look what they're willing to do. But like it could be a process addiction, or wow, that's all so nice what you do, or oh wow, like you're so fit, or oh what so much stuff. Oh wow, their social media is so good. So I just think we have to be really careful that like it can look really positive on the surface,
Hmm.
uh, but it can really just swallow people up very quickly. And so it's just something to be really mindful. So again, when we're talking about gambling, shopping, sex, internet activity, video games, eating, working, exercise, none of those things are evil. It's just being aware that you can have a problematic relationship interaction with those things, and like that can happen very quickly. And what I mean by quickly is like this could be a few weeks to get into a problematic place. So there are different things that can help with this: counseling,
Hmm.
coaching, medications, all types of different things can be helpful as supports, but it's really recognizing where things are and when they can be problematic. And so, why are we talking about this on a trauma podcast? Because people impacted by trauma are at higher risk for process addictions. There's different risk factors, you know, having maybe someone in your family, history, genetic predispositioning, who also struggled with gambling or any of these activities. There can be a genetic link or an environmental link. If you've been around some of these different things, seen it be a problem, but not labeled as a problem,
Hmm.
you know, it would be very similar if we were looking at screening for substance use.
Yeah. It's so tricky though. Like how they like manage to get around like not labeling it as gambling, but yet it is gambling or like a process addiction of in of itself, and that it's so crazy. So crazy. But also the other thing that like really is I find fascinating as I was doing research about process addictions um is that I know we've talked about how sometimes brains like predictability and they like certainty. In process addictions, though, they deliver unpredictable rewards. So there's a variable reinforcement schedule. There's very fast dopamine spikes, as Eric was mentioning, like things they want to be fast. They're super, super easy to be accessible all the time. Um, and that's what your brain likes. It likes that like hope, that little seed, that little dopamine burst of like, oh man, like I might just get another fix here in a minute. Like I might just win big and that's gonna feel good. Um, which is just so fascinating. It's fascinating, but it's also kind of disturbing that like
It
essentially
so
these
is.
people know how to manipulate your brain in a way that keeps you like spending money and like on some level can get people to a point of like ruining their lives.
Wow.
Crazy.
And it can happen just so quickly, can it?
It can. That being said, I have a little bit about trauma and process addictions.
Ooh, go
Um,
girl.
so this is where we talk about how chronic stress can alter your brain system. I don't get too into the weeds, but essentially when someone has trauma, your baseline nervous system is already dysregulated. Your behaviors become regulation strategies. And oftentimes, these process addictions can end up becoming a coping skill or coping mechanisms. So, oftentimes, process addictions are attempts at nervous system regulations. So gaming may regulate a sense of powerlessness, social isolation, achievement deficits. Shopping addictions might regulate shame, identity insecurity, emotional numbness. Pornography can regulate attachment wounds, rejection sensitivity, and performance anxiety, just to name a few. Um, and this can make them harder to identify. Unlike substances, you cannot abstain from life. You can't eliminate all screens. You can't eliminate all shopping centers. You can't avoid food. You can't, not
Mm.
engage in like culture. You can't not work out. Like, it's all around us. Process addictions are often rewarded by society before they are like punished.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's something I can go on and on about, so I'm trying not to go too far into one
That's what we're
thing.
here to.
Well, there's so many different layers to this, so I think it can get like really overwhelming, but just I think being on the lookout for, what is that interaction like for you with something? Like, is it costing you something? Is it impacting your relationships, your work, your financial health, physical health? Just kind of evaluating, being kind of honest, and maybe listening to those around you, because an impacted relationship is something to keep an eye out on. But yeah, we just want people to be aware, be mindful. These things are going to exist, they're not going to stop existing. So we just need to be aware of how do we protect ourselves and how do we manage this. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying any of these things. It's just being mindful of how are you interacting with this.
Mhm.
Anything else that you have, Miss Tiffany?
Um, so let's see. I don't want to go too far, but the other thing that I found interesting is the prefrontal cortex fatigue factor. And this is when someone says, "I don't know why I keep doing it." Um, It often happens because of a prefrontal cortex inhibitory control, stress overload, sleep deprivation, decision fatigue, extreme stress. Oftentimes, the brain shifts from executive functioning into habit, um, like habits that we form that are comfortable, and we end up going in survival mode, and that can, sometimes unfortunately, create a shame loop. So the neuroscience of shame is it activates a threat circuit, increases your cortisol, that decreases prefrontal cortex functioning, and then it increases an urge to regulate. So we have behavior, shame, stress, and then behavior again. And that just repeats itself, which makes breaking process addiction requiring us to also break that shame cycle, as well. That being said, we do have our wonderful, wonderful neuroplasticity. So there's hope we can rewire the brain. Um, so the opposite of a addiction isn't necessarily sobriety. It's regulation and connection to other things, so that the brain experience isn't dependent on that regulatory process. Yeah.
So much science, so much help. I mean, Tiffany, what
Science.
does it feel like for you to hear maybe the practical side of this, and maybe some of the things going on?
It's fascinating. It's very fascinating. It makes me, I feel like I should do a Q&A with you to ask you all the questions about like how this works, especially these gambling trainings. Like how do you pinpoint when someone is like engaging themselves and like doing it for fun, and where's the line of where it crosses over? Like, how do you determine all of that? Like, how do you know when something qualifies to be labeled as a process addiction versus like a weekend fun investment.
And I do default to talk about gambling because that's what I have like an endorsement and training on and more skill or expertise talking about. Um, but usually for gambling, it would be financial, to be honest. So it's like when people are noticing, like, wow, it's not, I don't have that money anymore, or I'm risking it. So I think there's just a lot of layers to some of this that are um, maybe harder to do for some folks. I just think it can be like more challenging. So I think looking at financial risks, looking at consequences. Another thing that sadly is happening for some people is like crimes. So what are they doing to keep the money going, so to speak? So is it stealing money? There is a story that went viral of someone, I guess, like stealing like $200,000 from the retired grandparent to um, invest in crypto, but it wasn't investing; it was gambling. Yeah, so I'm happy to answer any and all questions. Just always something, right?
This is true. This is true. So fascinating, though. So I guess, like, is it common for you to see individuals with process addictions, gambling addictions, come to you on their own, or like being pushed towards you, or like coming because like someone else has given them an ultimatum, or
Um, I think a lot of people are self-referred. I mean, I don't work in like mandatory spaces for it though. So I mean, I guess some folks, if they were having trouble somewhere else, like teenagers or something, it could be mandatory. I do think there's so much shame about these types of things. They're not really seen as like diagnosable disorders. It's like, oh, you just have a weakness, or the word that gets thrown out a lot for gambling is you're a degenerate. You're a someone awful type of thing. And so I think it's weird. It's like I've had people willing to talk about really traumatic experiences, but if I ask them how much money they're making and what their debts are, they won't want to talk about that. So it's just kind of interesting. Like I think it kind of goes a little out of order, maybe what people are um, maybe expecting.
that's fair. That's fair. Are there different levels? Are there different levels to process addictions? Like, and does the levels or difficulties of the ingrained system require different approaches?
Um, yes, it does require different approaches. I think it depends on like what someone's struggling with. So, like for example, if it's on the phone that someone's struggling with, like that's a little more challenging because most people aren't going to give up their phone. If it's something like in person or different locations, like that's a little bit easier. Uh, but no, I mean it's in this world in Ohio. I mean, you really can't go anywhere and not see it. I mean, they have even like little betting machines. You can go to Kroger, place a bet, and not just talking about like lotto tickets. Like literally go to a machine and uh, place a different bet. Um, yeah, it's I don't think widely understood. So there's a lot of different things going on these days.
Hmm. That's fair. Well, do you have any other insights for us today?
Not today. I need to go back to the drawing board, I think, and think about um, some of the different options because I feel like I'm just too all over today.
That is a-okay. Well, the way I want to leave everyone with is recognizing that process addictions are not moral failures. They're nervous systems just trying to survive and regulate. But sometimes survival strategies that once protected us can become cages. Growth ultimately begins when we try to understand the brain and then compassionately teach it something new.
Thanks for being here, guys.